Welcome back to a new episode of People and Purpose at GMG Podcast. With us today is our Deputy CEO, Kapil Sethi, talking about a very interesting subject in the world of business, mergers and acquisitions. Good morning, Kapil. Welcome with us today.
Morning, Razan, and thank you for having me here.
So, the subject of mergers and acquisitions is a big one. And I believe every business has different views about it. But fundamentally, the reason it takes place is because it has added values to businesses. And GMG has lately been, all out in the market and in the media with the different bold decisions it has taken on the subjects. Can you tell us a little bit more on that?
Mergers and acquisition is actually it's more of a strategic objective, and it's a way how you strategically plan how you want to grow in the organization. It can take many ways, and M&As are done to achieve various objectives. It can be to increase your revenue share. It can be to wipe out the competition. It can also include to strengthen or get more economies of scale, and also going beyond your comfort zone. When I say beyond your comfort zone, means let's say you've been operating in a certain sector or certain geographies. M&As or mergers and acquisitions provide you that opportunity to go beyond the borders. You can expand geographically. You can actually expand into new verticals. You can bring in new product portfolios, new product concepts, which will further help you in advancing or accelerating your growth path. So M&A is one of the key strategic pillars to be able to expand at a much rapid pace.
And what impact do you think they actually have on the balance sheet of any business?
M&A in the initial, so if I look at the methodology of M&A, M&A will always have a significant impact on the financial statements of a business in the initial years. Just to take a very simple example, let's say if I want to acquire a company and let's say the value of the company is 100, I will have to pay that company that 100. Now, I may have 100 as a cash, but I have to pay that cash out. So that will deplete the cash out of my financial statements. Let's assume for a minute I don't have that cash, which means I will go for borrowing, which means I'll have to increase the liability. So in the initial part of any acquisition, it does have a strain on the financial statement because you are letting go of your resources. But it's all about timing. As I said earlier, the whole objective of M&A is to expand or to bring more efficiency. With time, if M&A done properly, can bring a lot of dividends back to the business. Now, the reality is, and if you look at all the M&As being done across the globe, and there are a number of reports available, generally between 50 to 90% of M&As actually fail. Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
there are reasons behind it because people go into that perspective that yes, it's acquisition means it's done and we can move forward, but it requires a lot of alignment. You need to integrate a lot of things before we can move forward. So M&A is a very, very important part from a strategic perspective in terms of your growth, but it has to be done well to be able to reap the benefits and in turn reduce the pressure on the financial statements which was created at the initial level.
Now, you highlight a very important point because you're talking about being done well. And I think that is the different recipe between different organizations and how they're done. Now, a lot of the time people hop onto an opportunity and they would not have necessarily enough time in advance to prepare for it. And in other times, it might be a planned merger and acquisition, right? When you say done properly, are you talking about the prepping for it, the actual integration, or the kind of investment that comes because of an acquisition that needs to happen within a business to sustain it?
I think this has number of facets to it. Yeah. So let's start from the beginning. And when you're looking at expanding or you're looking for an acquisition, you need to first understand how will that acquisition fit into your overall scheme of your strategy. Is it adding revenue? Is it adding new countries? Is it adding new portfolio? Is it adding new products? So I think once you have been very clear on that, then you have to do a lot of market research. It's not just about going ahead and doing an acquisition. You need to really understand, will that bring value to you? So you need to drill down from a market research perspective. If you're going into new geographies, that how will this acquisition support you? Once you've made that decision, then it's all about laying down the roadmap. And so there have been various. So if I look at GMG as a classic example, we've done a number of acquisitions in the last couple of years. And to be honest, with the way we have gone about, I think we have been one of the successful few who have been able to integrate them well. And I will start with the first one, which happened for us in Southeast Asia.
Yes.
This was during the COVID time,
Yes.
when everything was shut. In spite of us being not able to travel, not being able to be in the region where we are acquiring, we were still able to complete the acquisition. Now, this is a journey which we went through, and it was very thoroughly planned, and it took a reasonable amount of time, but it was done well.
And it had a massive impact in the market because at the time when everyone was saving their pennies, we went all out.
Yeah. Again, it's an opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah. M&A is always an opportunity, and it's all about timing. You need to grasp that opportunity at the right point of time. This opportunity arose, yes, and we understand it was a very tough time, but that's where the leadership and the owner entrepreneurial skills come in place, because M&A always requires someone to take a bold decision. You have to, because the other side is always unknown truth for you. You know your business. For us, sports has been our forte. We have been in this industry for more than 47 years. So it was a easy thing, because the first acquisition which we went into was in sports. And we knew this is our main strengthening point, which we will be able to deliver very quickly. And we went fast, we acquired, but then it came out with the acquisition came with its own challenges. To name a few, whenever you are going into any geography, you have cultural nuances, you have IT systems which are different. Simple basic things would be your financial year-end will not be same. It may feel very tactical, but when you look at from a finance perspective, you have one company which is operating, let's say, Jan to December, and your entire group is working from July to June. So you need to integrate those. You need to change those systems to be able to see a basic reporting in a single way. Yeah. Now, again, these are basics, but this needs to be addressed. You need to understand when you go into that market, how soon you will be able to integrate those systems into how will you be able to integrate those employees? One of the key risks and challenges once you are going for an acquisition is there is always an employee nervousness. People are always scared what is going to happen to them. And that's something which you need to take care of, because this is talent. Talent is not. People have been working there, and you need to ensure you're able to absorb them, bring them under your umbrella, make them work with them, and transition them into your culture, your values. Sometimes it's to adapt those cultures and those values, because it's not about just adapting value, but it's in terms of aligning with how those countries work. So you need to find ways to be able to nurture that.
And usually when a merger and acquisition happen, it comes in two formats. Either one is selling because a business is not necessarily as profitable as they wish for them to be, or it's such a successful smaller business and a bigger company comes and takes over. Let's say it's the first. In those cases, how do you, with speed, evaluate the current capability of the people and the systems, the foundational work that requires for you to grow? Because obviously you need to catch up to be able to integrate it as a positive merger, right? What kind of process do you follow to ensure that assessment is done? Is it a pre-assessment, or is it a post-assessment, or is it an ongoing assessment?
And it's a very good question. the company has, so when you look for a target, and when you are evaluating a target, and you know that target has not been performing well, and that's one of the reasons why they are looking in the market to either sell or divest the equity. But that target for you is important because you believe that target will add value to you. Again, it can be various ways: revenue growth, geographical expansion, new product, etc. But as soon as you are very clear, or your strategy is clear that this target is going to add value, then it's not about how they have been operating. It's all, the entire roadmap has to be prepared, how fast you will be able to integrate them into your systems, into your ways of working.
But does it always work to have them integrated?
Uh, See, if I look from, if I look at the example or the various acquisitions which we have done, and also what I've seen as examples globally, it's been mixed. I've seen acquisitions where you have not been able, you don't take that decision and, or a bold decision to really make them integrate with you, and it, with time, the entire acquisition fails. It's a very classic example. Without naming the brand, we are dealing with the brand. The brand was acquired by a big corporate. But for that corporate, that brand acquisition, the brand was very small brand in the entire scheme of things. For the last 5 years, they are still integrating. That brand has lost value. Now I'll change that to where we are. We went into Asia when the business was not performing, but there were reasons why the business was not performing. We went in, we were clear that we will have to bring in a lot of changes because either the systems were not there, businesses did not have the right process available, or the right monitoring mechanism was not available. Now, we could have waited and given enough time for us, for the business to turn it around on its own, but that would not have worked for us. And I think we took a very right and bold decision in going with speed, investing in the business with respect to new systems, getting the right talent in the organization along with the existing talent to see how we can further enhance the current business processes, and then going aggressive in the market in terms of expansion. And if I look at 2 years down the line, we have been really successful both in terms of expanding our footprint in those geographies, but also strengthening our brand and business relationships across the board. When we went into the business in terms of the year of acquisition, most of our brand relationships, or most of the relationships which the target company was having, was going down the drain. They were not up to the level. With us going in, spending that time, we were able to bring those relationships back, and now we are seeing the results. So I think it's not always that what is right or what is wrong. It's all about you laying down the right roadmap, sticking to it, and being bold enough to take that decision. There will be instances where you may take a wrong decision, but it's better to move ahead, adapt quickly, learn, and then move forward, rather than just waiting to things to happen, because that will delay. And ultimately, it's business, and you need to move fast to be able to bring those changes.
100%. Now, if I take the subject slightly a little bit more into the context of GMG rather than global practices, we have seen a series of acquisitions happening, and they all started at a certain period, which is the largest one coming out of COVID, multiplied into quite a few till today. Would you say that that was a company readiness at that time to start venturing down that route of investments, or was it opportunities that happened to come towards GMG? And specifically, these were mostly on sports, and they were for other geographical markets. So if I was to turn the equation of decision-making into the GMG world, what would you say was the reason at that time and the journey since?
If you look at our history for the last, almost, I would say, till to last 4 decades, we have been primarily a GCC-based business.
Correct.
Only during the last decade is where we started looking at how we can go beyond the GC. If I look at the current, or let's say when we were operating for the last 4 decades, you're talking about a GCC having a population of 50 to 55 million. So your growth is going to be limited. At certain point of time, you will end up in a situation where you will see you cannot grow more than what you can do in that sphere of things. And I think that's where the strategic thinking started coming. The leadership, the owner took that bold decision in terms of thinking through how they want to grow beyond the borders. And it is not that we just decided and we went into. I think there has been a lot of legwork which has happened over the years. Although COVID hit and we saw a number of opportunities coming in, but in terms of strategy, it was being built even beforehand. People have been exploring opportunities. The leadership and the management of JMG had been looking around to see how we can go beyond the borders or beyond GCC. Sports has been our core, and definitely we were first, or we were in most or kind of interested in seeing sports related opportunities. We went ahead, but once we completed that acquisition and we had a footprint in Asia, brands started looking at us in a different level, because now they saw us as a more kind of a global key account for them, because moving from 6 countries to 12 countries and then having an opportunity from going 12 to 20, because Southeast Asia is big and there are still many countries where we want to go and we are still exploring. So I think that gave us an opportunity for us or for the brands to see us at a different level. And that's one of the reasons within 12 months of that acquisition, we got an opportunity to acquire the Nike exclusive rights for Singapore and Malaysia.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it would have been possible if we would not have been in the region. Yeah, we have been, as I said, discussions have been happening with the senior management, with various brands over the years, but then you have to act on something. And I think the first acquisition paved the way for us to move further into different parts. And Nike acquisition came in and we completed that. Along with that, we were also looking at how we can expand. Sports has been the key, but then we are in food, we are in health and beauty, we are in logistics. So we were looking at see how we can further strengthen our other verticals also. Along with the way we were working for sports, opportunities came for everyday goods. And we did not stop, because we realized that to be able to grow and to be able to expand in an aggressive pace, we need to keep on focusing on all our verticals at the same time. Opportunity came to acquire Giant, which is the chain of supermarkets. We have been in our everyday goods food business since more than 4 decades. Our business actually started as a butchery.
Yeah.
And if you see over the years, we have been primarily a commodity trader, primarily a commodity trader along with a distributor. But we laid down the strategy that we cannot continue just being a commodity trader, because at certain point of time, you will be squeezed by the principal as well as by the retailer. So we took the destiny in our own hand and we worked out a strategy how we are going to lay this forward. An acquisition opportunity came in and we took over the supermarket chains. So we started with commodity, we went into manufacturing, we have the distribution, and we started expanding on supermarkets to be able to control end to end. Being into the supermarket business provided us another opportunity, and everything becomes linked then, because when you are in that phase and when the businesses, the competition, the opportunities start coming across to you, because they see you as one of the players who are willing to look at across the horizon. Our acquisition of Giant provided us an opportunity to step into the supermarket business. That led us to another acquisition, which is Aswak. Aswak brought us not only expanded our supermarket chains, but also provided us into a community mall. So we are now also the landlords. So now that has again expanded our horizon. So if I look at the journey, starting from where the acquisition spree started, from sports to food into various verticals, and it is expanding. And I think that's very clearly, it clearly demonstrates that M&A, if done well, M&A, if put with the right strategy, will help you in not only expanding, but also growing in terms of stature and how an organization is seen globally.
Can you give me a little bit more of an insight on the methodology that's followed in mergers and acquisitions?
M&A has been there for ages now. Yeah. And the science, let's not call it a science, the methodology of M&A has evolved. There are various ways where you can value a business. People use various methodologies. I don't want to go into technical part of it, but just on a macro level, people use discounted cash flows. People use PE multiples. People use revenue multiples.
Oh my God, did I ask the right question?
Yeah, now this is a mix of a lot of things. The way you have to look at when you're looking at acquisition is how much that value which you are acquiring will be able to add to your business. Now, and again, I'm just maybe explaining in a very simple way. Let's say a business is doing 100 as a revenue. Now, if you, based on your working, your future projections, and based on how you see that business is going to be integrated into your businesses and how well you can grow, you believe you can take it to a next level, then you will start looking at that business from a revenue multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that is the only way you can value a business. You will also see what kind of investment is required further in that business. So if it's a very heavily capital intensive business, simple, if we look at supermarket business, we started our acquisition with 18 stores, but we always knew that 18 store is not going to help us elevate this business. We have to expand. We have to invest. So when you have to invest, then you have to look at how much future investment will go into that business. What kind of cash flows will be required to fund that business? That's where then you start looking at a longer period of your cash flows and you start discounting them to see whether that business will bring value to you. Again, it's a methodology. So you value different ways, and then ultimately, if it works within the principle and you are able to take that much of a risk, you take that decision. That's how generally most of the corporates do.
Now, for every acquisition that GMG has done, we have seen expansions already taking place. Collectively, they have almost doubled the size of the business, right? How sustainable is this speed, do you feel? Like, do you believe that speed has an impact on sustainability, or is it just part of the plan and hence it's very well calculated with low risk?
GMG is a growth company and will always work towards speed. Speed does bring its own challenges, but we strongly believe that I think speed brings a more opportunity and more efficiency rather than challenges. Because the more you delay taking certain decisions, the more it brings pain to the organization. And especially in case of a merger and acquisition, speed is the need, because you need to ensure that systems get integrated, people get integrated so that you can move forward fast. So although it's a challenge, but then there is a lot of opportunity by going with speed and integrating people on the systems well.
Can we talk a little bit more about the challenges? Because I think now, especially the audience that will be listening to us today internally, will probably be living more the challenge than enjoying, the luxury of being able to enjoy expansions and the whole interactions with, let's say, your stakeholders from the counterparts of the consequence. You buy and there's a nice consequence of growth. And by consequence, I mean it a positive one. But if you focus on the day-to-day people, they may actually be the ones that are dealing with some of the challenges. So what type of challenges do you believe we deal with?
There are a number of challenges which you need to look at, but IT is one of them. When I say IT, it's infrastructure and systems. You generally find that, or it's very rare you will find a company you are acquiring is already working in the same system in the same way the way you are working. So there is always a need to evaluate and see how you will be able to integrate those systems.
If I may interrupt you, just because we're opening now each one of those questions. So when you say system and integrations, Does the integration also have a setback on the business performance, or is there a way to bridge the continuity of operation while there's a system integration or upgrade?
I think it all depends, and it definitely it does have an impact, but it depends upon how fast you are able to integrate, and that's where speed comes in. Whenever you're going to look for a change in the infrastructure of the system, there is going to be an impact because a, a business has been running on a particular system in a particular way. People whom you are acquiring have adapted to those ways of working. So there is going to be an initial business impact. The more time you take to bring those on board is going to bring more pain to the organization, and that's where speed comes in. It's always better to go big bang and change the way, or let's not call change the system, or the system which you want them to be integrated with, to be able to bring that efficiency, because only once you work on a single system you'll be able to bring a lot of efficiency. I'll give an example. So when we acquired Giant, they were actually working on a system which was being run by another sister company.
Oh,
So
wow.
imagine, even if, let's say, I want to change a price of one can of soda, I have to send an email to the sister company to change that price. Now, that is not, I could have lived with that system, or we could have lived with that system, but that would have further only deteriorated the position. We started looking at options of how we can integrate and how soon we can integrate into our systems. And that's where we spent the time, effort, and expedited that journey. When we looked at a swap, again, they were working in different system. Now imagine two supermarkets having two different systems. It is not going to work in any shape or form. So the best part, the efficient part was to go big bang, but go with speed so that you're able to integrate and you're able to get that efficiency.
And you look at those challenges also pre-acquisition, like in the assessment discovery stage, and you account kind of like, the impact on business that it may have upon completion of the acquisition.
Definitely. I think everything is assessed pre-acquisition. You do a number of due diligence, you do a number of analysis to be able to frame what would be your roadmap post acquisition. So you are well aware what you are taking on board, which means you have already prepared a strategy and a framework as how you're going to integrate that. And you need to, and even when you look at an acquisition, you're not just looking at doing a financial due diligence. That is just a subset of it. You look at doing an HR due diligence, you look at doing an IT due diligence, you look at doing a legal due diligence, an operational due diligence, and that's where you identify all the gaps pre-acquisition.
Yeah.
Before even you sign on the dotted line, you have already be identified the challenges, you have already identified the solutions and how you're going to mitigate that risks, what kind of investments will be required, what kind of people or resources will be required to manage or mitigate those risks. And you have already laid down that plan even before you start an acquisition. Then it's all about sticking to that roadmap and how further you can bring that speed and efficiency and reducing the time gap or the timeline which you have put forward. Because the faster you go, the more efficient you will become, provided your roadmap is crystal clear and you have covered all your basics.
Speed, and this is challenge number one we're still dwelling on. So there's probably quite a few more we will address. But when we talk about speed is generally agility, and different companies have different ways to be able to manage speed. In the sphere of GMG, when we talk speed, is it speed of decision making? Is it the speed of operation? What type of speed are we looking at?
I will say speed, from the speed to be looked at, how agile you are. So it all depends upon, are you adaptive, are you agile, and are you able to take the decisions on the go. When I say on the go, means you are adaptive to the environment, and you are flexible to be able to change your view. Definitely, the decision making is a very critical part of it, and the faster and the smoother and the efficient decision making helps in ensuring that you are agile. Yeah. So it does, and ultimately it's all about leadership. The entire The efficiency of the speed will come from how, as a leadership, you are able to take those decisions. And if you are efficient and you are flexible and adaptable, I think it becomes much more easier, because challenges are going to be there. It's not that an acquisition will come and everything will run smoothly from day one. But if you are agile, if you are able to take a fast decision, you are proactive rather than reactive, you will be able to bring more efficiency on the table.
If I was to talk about people, because you mentioned earlier people being one of the pillars that you obviously consider at the time of mergers and acquisitions, there's now the people of the new company coming in, and there are your existing people. Would you say the challenge comes from the new people accepting the new organization, so the change basically, or are existing people being able to adapt to the integration itself?
As an organization, we need to be prepared when we are going for a merger and acquisition. We need to already have a strategy in place. While you are going ahead with an acquisition, there will always be nervousness on the other side, when I say on the target side. But there would also be nervousness on the acquirer side, because there are going to be changes. But it's how you put a strategy behind it. When we went into Southeast Asia, you were looking at 4 different countries. You had Singapore, you had Hong Kong, you have Indonesia, and you had Malaysia to start with. And if you look at, all 4 countries have their own cultures. They are not all together like a GCC, where you may still have commonality. So you had to understand what kind of nuances you need to deal with. So you had to adapt to those cultures. You had to bring those people on board to be able to guide them, to tell them that we are ultimately all going to work together to evolve. And what you need to also bring them a roadmap, because these people, there is a lot of talent in these countries. The people whom we are acquiring, there's a lot of talent we are acquiring. So we need to retain that talent. We need to elevate that talent. So if you have a good employee roadmap laid down, which will help you in not only retaining this talent, but also elevating them, the integration becomes much more smoother. And that's what we did. Through our people department, we were able to lead this strategy. And if I look today, in 2 years, I have seen people who have migrated from GCC to Southeast Asia to lead roles, and people who have been given opportunities from Southeast Asia to move to GCC or within the countries and being elevated, which clearly demonstrates that if you work along with the people, it's become much more easier and efficient to integrate.
So that was challenge number 2. Would you say there were other ones that would add value for us to uncover?
See, there would be many others, because there would be legal challenges. You will have organization structure, which will be very different to the way you have been working from a legal perspective. There would be tax challenges, because if I look at from where we started, GCC has been primarily a low tax economy. Yeah,
of course, yeah.
There has been an evolution. Tax is coming in, but generally it has been restricted. But if you look at Southeast Asia, it is a developed tax economy. So you have to adapt to that. So I think there would be challenges for that, because you need to integrate, you need to align with those processes. So you have legal, you have tax, we talked about IT, we talked about people, operations, because people have been working in a particular way or process. So you need to align those operational processes to be with yourselves to bring that efficiency. You need to bring new technologies in place, because maybe one is a system integration, but also system evolution, because as retail is evolving, you need to bring new technologies, or technologies which are already present in your country or in your system to bring to that table. So I think it's a mix of number of things over and above people and IT.
Do you believe it also creates a sense of optimization?
It does. One of the key elements of M&A is also optimization, because if you are going into an acquisition which is already in one of your verticals, which means you are in sports, you are acquiring another sports brand or other sports vertical, one of the key objectives of M&A is to bring optimization. How you will be able to use the same set of resources more efficiently to be able to deliver in higher capacity. So optimization in terms of processes, optimization in terms of resources, optimization in a very classic example would be in terms of your buying methodology. Because let's say if I'm dealing with Nike, I was only dealing with Nike for 6 countries. Now I'm dealing with Nike for 18 countries. So I will bring a lot of optimization in terms of my negotiation with the brand, negotiation with the suppliers, because I have the volume to provide. So it does bring a lot of optimization on the table.
But that also takes you to localization, right? So within the optimization, do we take into account that there's a localization area that we need to consider? Consumer, I believe, in those markets are substantially different from one another. You earlier mentioned that Asia is not like the GCC. There are cultural and behavioral differences amongst them. How do we address localization?
You will definitely have to take localization into perspective. But localization is more to adapt to the local environment to ensure that we understand the consumer and we adapt to that consumer. But again, optimization is a much wider part. When I look at localization, so let's again, the policies, the way we look at brand in GCC will be different to way the brand is represented
Exactly.
in the Southeast Asia countries. So you need to bring that, you need to bring those people, those processes align with yourself. Integrating of processes doesn't mean that they have to follow the process what you have been following over the years. Integration of process means to be able to take into consideration the localized processes, adapt those processes and come out with a much more joint process which will be able to take into consideration localization and then optimization. Within GCC, if I look at the way Dubai works and the way Saudi Arabia works, is very different. Although there are a lot of commonalities, but still there is an adaptation. So within GCC, you will need to adapt. Then inside Southeast Asia, which means you have to be much more localized. Take that into consideration while dealing with customers, dealing with brands, dealing with employees, or dealing in any space or any form.
Now, our first acquisition went straight out into Southeast Asia, which is very different as a ways of business, culture, people. It's we can't say it was an easy move in terms of market differentiation, right? Was Asia strategically planned, or it was an opportunity and we went into the discovery because the opportunity came?
Any acquisition requires a lot of market research to be done. Yeah, and we had spent a lot of time pre-acquisition to really understand the market. Starting from the leader, the owner, a lot of people had actually traveled around to see what kind of market we are entering. Even if I look at statistics, and I gave an example, if I look at GCC, you're talking about 55 million people. If I look at Asia, even starting with the 4 countries which we ventured into, you're talking about more than 550 million people. We also realize that Asia as a market is underserved. There is a lot of opportunity in terms of multi-brand, in terms of how you can elevate the brand. Yeah, and the market is hungry. So it was an easy fit for us to really go into that market and capture that opportunity. In addition, that provides us going into wider countries. So you still have, so we are in 4 countries. You have an opportunity to go in Philippines, to go in Taiwan, to go in Indonesia with a much wider scope. If I take all that into consideration, you're talking about more than 700 people. An underserved country, more than 700 people who are hungry for new brands, who are hungry to be elevated from a retail experience. And that's what GMG brings in, a much elevated retail experience. Another example would be Nike has been operating in that region for many years. They have been operating with multiple partners. We got an opportunity because we were there to acquire the Singapore and Malaysia retailership. There has been numerous discussions along with the previous owner, and I have seen those discussions where the brand principal and the retailer had been discussing about a Nike Beacon store, but no one had taken that initiative. We took that bold initiative and we launched the first Nike Beacon store in Southeast Asia. I would say in the last 40 years, there has been no such store. And
A beautiful one also.
And we did it in less than 12 months. And I think that clearly demonstrates our commitment and how we see that importance of the market. And that's where the brands have also started looking at us because they believe in us that we will be able to grow the brand.
Do you mind just recapping in the last, I believe it's now 4 years, 4 or 5 years, what are those acquisitions that we have taken? What markets have we either ventured into officially or ones that we maybe have signed and the team will be exposed to soon?
We started from, if I go a little bit back, our first entry was in Saudi Arabia in early 2000s. From there, I think we have been working primarily in the GCC. The first major acquisition came in Southeast Asia, including Africa. So when we acquired RSH, it was not just Southeast Asia. We also acquired stores in Egypt. Yeah. So we ventured into Egypt, and then we were given an opportunity of distributorship for Nike in Egypt along with other brands. Yeah. So that's how the expansion started. And now we have recently entered into a global partnership with VF, which expands our horizon in Southeast Asia into not only Singapore, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Malaysia, but also Philippines and also Taiwan. Yeah. Plus North Africa, which includes Algeria, Tunisia, and Morocco.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's one. Then we completed RSH acquisition. We went into acquiring the Nike exclusive rights, retail rights for Singapore and Malaysia. Thereafter, we started looking at food or everyday goods as our vertical, and we acquired Giant. From Giant, we then took over Aswak, both in community malls as well as in retail. And we continue to expand.
So this is a whole takeover of Africa and Asia, I see.
It is just a start.
Is Europe on the plan?
I think the entire globe is available for us.
I don't know why I even asked that question. Honestly, the subject has been of extreme interest, at least for me, and I have been part of the journey, and yet listening to it again is so refreshing to see that that vision of GMG is just unstoppable. Kapil, do you believe that there's anything else that you would like to add to the subject that the people can benefit knowing, whether it's for GMG or for the subject as a whole?
GMG is a growth company. We will continue to grow. We will remain aggressive. We are proud to partner with our principals, with our customers, with our consumers. I think everyone in this company has an opportunity to grow along with the way the company is growing. And we strongly believe there is no end. The opportunity is vast, and we are there for those opportunities.
Actually, I was just going to end and I decided to ask one more question. Our organic growth has also been pretty large. We've expanded a lot with our own brands like Sun and Sand Sports, as I should say officially. Do you believe our strategy is still working in parallel towards the growth of our own businesses as well as acquisitions?
I would say definitely, because we have been very, very focused on our own homegrown brands and our organic business. And to demonstrate, we are one of the few local family groups who have been able to take the homegrown brand globally.
Yeah.
Sun and Sand Sports being one of them, where we are now present in Singapore, in Indonesia, and in Malaysia. And we are expanding. So, and we have a number, we are willing to now grow.
I believe also.
That's right, yeah. Plus, everyday goods. We are taking our own homegrown brands, our manufactured brands globally. We are going to be in North America, we are going to be in Europe, we are going to be Australia, New Zealand, Asia. We are expanding, and we will continue to expand.
Thank you very much for joining us today. It has been such an insightful session. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes to come.